Some people, there's no place lonelier than a room full of people. We've all had that experience where we've gone to a simcha, maybe a bar mitzvah or a wedding, and there are hundreds of people surrounding us, sitting and mingling and dancing. But if you're a stranger in the room, despite the fact that you're surrounded on all sides of people, you can feel like the loneliest person on the planet. It's that mindset, it's that picture which helps describe to me a very powerful Gemara that appears in Maseches Sanhedrin, where the Gemara tells us the story of Zechariah ben Yehoyada, who was brutally murdered by fellow Jews. Now, every murder is tragic, but this murder was a little bit different. It was batting for the cycle. They murdered the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur in the Beis HaMikdash. And so the Gemara tells us that for 250 years, the blood of Zechariah sat there on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash and continued to boil. It would not sit still because it was crying out in pain. Until eventually Nebuzadran, the wicked chief executioner for the Romans, comes to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. He comes into the Beis HaMikdash and he sees this blood boiling on the floor. And so he looks at everyone and he says, "What is this?" They said, "That's a Jew that we killed many hundreds of years ago." Nebuzadran says, "Well, you know what? I am going to atone for this grievous sin." And so first he brings the Sanhedrin Gedola, he brings the 71 great righteous individual, and he murders them. Vilonach, and the blood of Zechariah does not sit still. And so then he brings the Sanhedrin Ketana. He brings 23 people and he murders them as well. And again, blood of Zechariah continues to boil. He brings the young men and the young women, the Tinoko Shel Beis Rab, and he brings all the children. You can imagine what a massacre, a tragic massacre is taking place inside the Beis HaMikdash, all because Nebuzadran wants to atone for the sin of Zechariah ben Yehoyada. Finally, Nebuzadran looks at the blood, he looks at Zechariah and he says, "Zechariah, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to wipe out the entire Jewish people?" And it's only then that the blood of Zechariah rests still and stops bubbling after 250 years. And it's a very strange Gemara, but why, after so many years, finally does the blood of Zechariah sit still? The answer, I believe, is that for 250 years, people used to come into the Beis HaMikdash. Think about how many hundreds of thousands of korbanos were brought, people who were Ola L'Regel, Yom Kippur, and they would all just walk past the blood of Zechariah and they wouldn't pay attention to it, they wouldn't notice it whatsoever. Until Nebuzadran comes into the Beis HaMikdash and finally, after 250 years, he notices the pain and the suffering of Zechariah. He looks at him and he says, "I see you and I notice you. How can I atone for this grievous sin against you?" My friends, while the story of Zechariah happened many hundreds of years ago, there are many Zechariahs living in our community. People who are sitting there in so much pain and suffering, and yet you and I walk by them on a daily basis and fail to notice. The way to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, the way to build it brick by brick, is by noticing the Zechariahs, noticing those who are lonely and on the margins of society, by calling out to them and saying, "I see you, I notice you, and you matter to me." That is how we will build, Amir Hashem, the Beis HaMikdash, brick by brick.